Coming to Good Friday is a daunting task. Many things can get in the way of this moment. After Palm Sunday and Maundy Thursday and all of the days in between, after reflecting this week about following Jesus to the cross, what more is there left to say? How do we avoid belaboring what is obvious or belittling what is profound? How do we hold ourselves back from jumping headlong into Easter before its time? And how do we avoid the great pitfall that has marked our collective Western understanding of this day for many centuries? That great pitfall is blame. Blame for Judas, who handed Jesus over. Blame for Pilate, who did not stop the execution when he had the legal power to do so. Blame for the disciples who ran away when Jesus was arrested. Or for Peter, who denied Jesus not once, but 3 times. And most of all, blame for the Jews, who today's gospel reading says demanded the death of Jesus. For centuries, the Western way of keeping Good Friday was to go to church, then to go see a passion play, and then to join an angry mob and go and kill some Jews. We become incensed that they killed Jesus. We want a scapegoat. That's the reason I began to wear this skull cap that I now wear throughout Lent. When I started wearing it, I only wore it on Good Friday. I started wearing it because I needed to remember what we Christians have done on this day throughout history, when we've approached it from the wrong direction. And I needed to remember where my place must be when our society goes looking for scapegoats again, whether they be Jews or racial minorities or women or the poor or gays and lesbians or whomever. If we look to place blame on anyone else, then there is nothing good about this Friday. When we realize the horrible violence we commit because of blame, when we see that blaming others absolves us of responsibility, even then we don't stop blaming. No, then we turn the blame in on ourselves. We strip away everything that is beautiful, clothe ourselves in darkness, and begin to scapegoat ourselves. Look through the Holy Week section of the hymnal sometime and see how many of those hymns contain language like this. Who was the guilty? Who brought this upon thee? Alas, my treason, Jesus, hath undone thee. 'Twas I, Lord Jesus, I it was denied thee. I crucified thee. Now, in and of itself, recognizing our part in the crucifixion and accepting responsibility is not a bad thing. But when it becomes blaming ourselves, when it becomes the only thing, as it can for so many of us on this day, then the way we see God and the way we see ourselves becomes distorted. Is it any wonder, then, that in Mel Gibson's movie about the Passion, that it is his own hand we see on the screen driving the nails into Jesus' hands and feet? Is it any wonder then that today in the Philippines, many people will actually have themselves nailed to crosses? If we look to place blame on ourselves, then there is nothing good about this Friday. If we really listen to the Passion Gospel we have just heard, we find the antidote to blame. In John's Gospel, Jesus is the one in control of the crucifixion. He does not pray in the Garden of Gethsemane to have this cup pass him by, but instead he manages the confrontation with Judas and the cohort. He lectures the high priests and their attendants on procedure. He tells the Roman governor that even he is simply a cog in a machine being operated by others. Jesus carries the cross by himself, does not ever cry out in pain, takes time while on the cross to give a last will and testament regarding his mother, and dies quietly with the simple phrase, "It is finished." Jesus does not blame. In John's Gospel, Jesus is not a helpless victim, but rather is the one with power who willingly sets aside his power and goes to the death of crucifixion. This is the kind of God we worship. A God who chooses humility rather than grandeur when approaching us. And if, as a wise priest once told me, we become what we worship, then maybe that is why we are so uneasy about giving up blame on this day. Blame of others or ourselves protects us from confronting a God who shows us that the way of true power is to empty yourself of that power. That is frightening. That is a reason to tremble, because we are invited to become like that God. God does not blame. All blame was set aside with those three little words, "It is finished." God instead invites us to give up victimhood and take the power set before us. Invites us then to let go willingly of our power, to be crucified to the world. That is terrifying stuff. It would be easier if God was a God of grandeur, a God who held us accountable, demanded a price, set clear demarcations of who is in and who is out. But our God is not like that. Our God is a God of humility, a God who forgives, who is a spendthrift with grace, who welcomes all. And we are called to be like that God. Terrifying. Jesus Christ didn't come into the world to die. He was born to be Emmanuel, God with us. He came, as he told Pilate, to testify to the truth. The truth to which he testifies is the God whom he is with us. A humble God who removes the trappings of his divinity and is willing to go even to the cross to show us that. On this day, we have removed the trappings of divinity from this space in which we worship. No shiny brass or silver, no candles, no banners or flags or hangings, no flowers, no organ music. We have made a humble space for a humble God. In a little while, after we have been so bold as to stand before this humble God and pour out our prayers and supplications, we will adorn this space with the new trappings of divinity. A simple cross, crafted from undecorated wood. And then we will have the opportunity to approach this cross and embrace our humble God without blame and without fear of blame. If you are like me, there will still be a great deal of trembling, because giving up the protection of blame opens us to the awesomeness of what is asked of us this day. Each of us is called to accept this cross as our way of life. Each of us is called to testify to the truth by accepting the true power of God and then emptying ourselves of that power. So I invite each of you to come when it is time. Come up and spend some time at the cross. There's no right way to come and venerate the cross and commit yourself to what it means. Come and stand by it, touch it, kiss it, hold it, kneel before it. But most importantly, come and make it your own. It is the way of life. And it is why this Friday is indeed